the subway, we haven't heard any talk about those kinds of things.
Those suspects have been identified, and by the way, they're the same group of kids that are involved in all of these other crimes, same gang, same everything. To repeat the question, is the shootings that were at Safeway parking lot and other local shootings recently, and where are we at with those? We know who the suspects are, we're chasing them down, it's being investigated, and they are the same group of kids that are responsible for largely a lot of these other things.
Can we put them
They
away?
probably live next door to me.
Yes, we will. Now, we'll get to all of you. See where all the hands are. Ma'am, you've been very patient. The question is do I have a theory about why specific neighborhoods and specific streets are being targeted more than others? No, other than suspects talk to each other, and if they're finding really good stuff they like, they're going to tell each other about it. So, you know, and they'll go where they know they can get stuff quick and get out there. So, ma'am.
Thank you. My name is Gail Winter. I work with Windermere, and thank you for seeing my colleagues and friends here. I live on South Holly Street. I have had my car and home broken into 5 years within the last 8 years. I believe the perpetrator lives right next door to me. I have called the police department at least 10 times about this person who's a drug dealer, and I've seen it happen. Lines of cars out in front of my house, especially when mom's out of town. I don't know what you can do about that, but I have certainly tried very hard to report that, and nothing's happened. In fact, I was told once by an officer that I would have to be willing to come next door and identify him to do any legal charges. Well, I was afraid to do that. I'm a single woman. I lived in my house for 23 years. I left Bellevue to live in this community. I love it. But I am afraid every night when I go to bed, every night. And I lock my doors, I have a dog, I've done everything to protect myself, and I still am afraid. And I appreciate how hard this must be in this community for you. It's got to be so difficult. And Mark Solomon, again, thank you so much. My general impression of the police department since I lived here is that your response time is really slow. And unless it's really like someone's getting murdered or raped or whatever, you don't respond. And I'm sure part of that's your budget cuts or whatever it is. But I feel like right now listening to all of you, I respect you, but it's like wah, wah, wah to me. I just don't feel like that you guys are doing your job in a community that's really under a lot of pressure as far as crime goes. And
Okay.
that's all I have to say.
I understand your frustration. Let me give you a couple of things. One is, and it was the woman lives up in New Holly.
No, I live on South Holly Street.
South Holly Street. She's been broken into. She believes there may be a drug dealer living next door.
Oh, I know there's a drug dealer.
Okay. Drug dealer living next door. She believes he's responsible for the murder. What I will tell you is, if he isn't, the people that are coming there to buy drugs probably are. That's something that my staff needs to get working on. I need to get with Ann. I need to get with Ann at the end of the night and pass on to her what you know. We shut down drug houses all the time. My anti-crime team, along with our narcotics section, I could go on for an hour on all the wonderful work they've done in the last year shutting down drug houses and arresting a lot of people that are responsible for burglars. So we need to know about it. The fact is, we got, you know, you said you've talked to South Precinct personnel. Ann, are you aware of anything we got going on Holly?
In some cases, yes, but we...
Yeah, we'll get you hooked up and we will shut that place down. Keep in mind, and what you said to some degree is true. If it's an in-progress call, somebody breaking into a house right now, somebody being assaulted right now, someone the victim of a domestic violence getting beaten on right now, a store being robbed right now, our response time is under 7 minutes. We're there usually very quick. But this is an extremely busy precinct. And if you come home and find that your house has been broken into,
That's happened too.
unfortunately that becomes a lower priority call because of all of the in-progress calls we are running to. And it may be 2 or 3, 4 hours, or even the next shift before we can get there and lift prints and take that investigation,
When my house
because
got
you're now out
broken
of danger.
into, when my house
So-
got broken into, they told me to wait and not go in.
Mhm.
I waited for 3 hours, and finally I
Okay.
went in
You should have
myself.
gotten a call back, and that's something we're working on doing, so I apologize for that.
Sorry to be so discouraged.
Ma'am,
Yeah, talking about prevention, I wonder about signs. Our neighborhood is talking about signs. Does the police department have any statistics on signs that are out and whether it drops crime in the area? And do they have block watch signs that we could put up in our neighborhood?
that's something I'm going to defer to John or even Mark Solomon. As far as block watch signs, like you're talking about like a yard posting sign, this area is being, has a block watch.
Just, with all these people
Yeah,
here, we all put
John.
signs in our neighborhood, then maybe
All of those things make a difference. Signs make a difference, but your presence out in the community make the biggest difference. And when people know that you're observing, watching, and that there isn't a place for them to hide, the kind of the septet idea I was talking about, those are the things that really help deter individuals from coming into your community.
Ma'am, way in the back with the hand up.
Children.
One piece that I forgot to mention, I forgot to repeat the question, and I'm reminding him, is the fact about the signage is important. Seattle Neighborhood Group assists us as well as our crime prevention unit assists. Now, as far as the gang prevention and things of that nature, a lot of that activity takes place with our school resource officers. And that's how the awareness piece of staying out of gangs is extremely important. One of the individuals that's here tonight, Detective Cookie Bolden, is right here in the middle. She is one of the individuals that is active. What it is it's a twofold piece. Number one, we may have officers and individuals that work within the schools, but we also need you to be involved with talking with each one of your kids about how to stay away from things that aren't positive. And to get them, and you're a great community on getting individuals involved with positive activities, especially your kids. But at the same time, it's a constant effort. What are we looking for as far as prevention goes is the fact that we know that a majority of our kids stay safe when they're in school. Not hanging out outside of school in some of those activities. But the schools also need and continue to need parental assistance, and there are people that are voluntary that could help out as well. So those are some of the gang prevention pieces that are most critical.
Thanks, John. Ma'am?
Have you noticed that there's a correlation between the opening of all the medical marijuana dispensaries up and down MLK and Rainier and the crime? We have a business right across from one of them, and I have literally seen people go out and purchase and then go sell them on the corner.
No, I have not. However, there is a huge correlation with something else that I need to mention. Home invasion robberies. The question was, have I noticed a correlation between these new medical marijuana dispensaries and the street crimes we've been talking about tonight? The quick answer is not yet. However, almost every single home invasion robbery that we've had, now let me define what that is. That is not a burglary. That is not somebody going into your house when you're at work and stealing your jewelry. This is somebody coming to your door at gunpoint, putting you on the ground and taking what they want. Almost every single one we have had in this city has been because the people at the house have a grow operation in their basement or whatever else. And it has to do with a drug ripoff, unpaid debt, a beef between drug dealers. The other thing we see in that realm is illegal gambling and gambling debt and loan sharpening and things like that. So that is almost every single one of our home invasion robberies. They are not random acts. The people know each other. Okay? All right. Okay, ma'am.
Columbia City Parents Yahoo group, which is a pretty good network here. There was this last week, someone found
Orange Camaro, but yes.
Yes. It was in my house, at my house this last week, and then I turned in the license plate.
Are you the one that took the picture and turned in the license plate?
I did turn it in.
Wonderful.
Yay!
Thank you. Repeat the question. There was a recent crime of safe being stolen out of that burger, I believe. And it was, the safe was being rolled down the street by suspects. She got the license plate number. I think someone else took a photo. Our detectives are in the process of contacting those people in the next couple of days. We contacted the owner. Our officers have lifted prints off of the safe. We're well into the mission of knowing who the suspect is. Believed to be probably an ex-employee, so that one will be down soon. Thank you very much. Sir.
It seems to me that you know who many of the perpetrators of the crimes are. You're aware of who they are. And what I think I heard you say is that you can relate 3,000 arrests to just 50 criminals. So it sounds, the impression I'm getting is that it's a revolving door. What actually, you're arresting the same people over and over again. If you know who the perpetrators of the crimes are, what is happening when you identify them and arrest them and link them to a particular robbery? What is the consequence? How fast are they back out on the street? Can you repeat all that?
Okay. The question is, it sounds like we're talking about repeat offenders, we're talking about the top 20 suspects.
And juveniles.
And juveniles, right.
And juveniles. And how does that all work together as far as how fast are they back out on the street and all that? Let me address those issues one at a time. When the chief talked about identifying the top 10 and top 20, one burglar, one auto theft we know is responsible for 50 to 100. Okay, when we catch that person, if they're an adult, they go to prison. They go to prison for anywhere from 1 to 5, 6, 7 years, depending on prior history, if they've been a felon, if they're a registered felon, if they had a gun on them. I mean, there's a lot of different precursors that make it go up. When we look at the top 10 or 20, that's our detectives and our officers actually putting together a list of people to hunt, watch, surveil, so we can get a handle on it and put it down. And actually, when we see those big groups, our auto theft citywide dropped huge when that was pioneered out in the north end a number of years ago, and it is still low. And I know you don't want to hear that because it's high here. Citywide, it's very low compared to what it was a number of years ago. So there's a lot of value in approaching the top 10 or top 20 burglars, robbery suspects. Now, if it's banks and things like that, it's an FBI case, they go to federal prison. If it's juveniles, whole different story. They have, the juvenile justice system has its own set of criteria, although we're having a lot of success working with our prosecutors in the juvenile section as far as getting enhanced sentences. Like the young man who took the purse of the 50-year-old woman down in Marina Beach, there's going to be enhanced sentencing there. The 17-year-old that's part of one of these robbery crews, he's getting tried as an adult. No more juvenile stuff, you know. So there is a point system on how many times they're arrested before they actually do serious time, like Echo Glen for a year or whatever. But our detectives are having huge successes working with these prosecutors to kind of bump that up a little bit. And there's gang enhancements, there's a lot of different things at play. So we work hard on that. I mean, some things we can't change. I mean, you know, as far as how the juvenile justice system works, but we're having good success working with them to get to yes, to get some of these people put away longer. Sir?
My question is for the mayor's office. First, SB, good job, guys. I appreciate everything you're doing, and I understand you want us out there making a presence, and that's involved in all great, but in the end, we need more cops in the street. What's the mayor's office doing to get more officers and not replacing you guys that retired?
Getting more.
Where is he over there?
So,
Can I add to that point? Take a look around the room. 2/3 of the community are not here. This is the most diverse zip code in the country, and 2/3 of them are not here. So
What are we
we're
doing
not
for-
getting the number of calls, thereby not allocating enough resources so these folks can do their job.
This gentleman makes a really important point. So all of us have lived and shared this community for many years. We're also very well aware it's an incredibly diverse community. We're all really proud of that. We have a lot of immigrant and refugee populations that live in Southeast Seattle, and we frankly like it that way. There are many people that come from other countries that are full of strife and lots of issues where calling or picking up and calling the authorities or 911 is not the first thing you think of. So we always have a more challenging task of communicating that that's how we get more of that attention, making sure that folks are completely engaged. It goes back to how we're connecting to different sorts of communities that all share Southeast Seattle. It's a really important point, and I appreciate you making it. To the first point about the number of officers, Chief will be able to talk more detail about what happens with retirements and replacement. I know that 7 police officers were hired just on Friday, so that's good news. We have to look, public safety is the #1 priority for any city and absolutely for this administration and for Seattle as well. #1 priority. We also have tremendous budget challenges. We've all heard that. It's an ugly truth. We're not sure what's coming at us from the state. It stresses every layer of the system. So if we have millions of dollars of cuts coming at us from the state government, what do we do about human services? All of these things play into that feeling of public safety that's out there. So I'm not trying to diminish the question. It's a really important question. It's just really complicated. We're going to work really hard to make sure that this community gets the resources that it needs, as well as other communities. The gentleman here talked about those 54 individuals the chief mentioned. That's just Belltown. That story is just a Belltown story. That you can believe me, they are very concerned, and I hear from them pretty much daily on the same sorts of questions. What about resources? So it's complicated, and you have a commitment from the mayor's office that we'll be continuing to work on that despite the fact that we have a very large budget deficit to deal with at the state level and at the city level as well. Appreciate the question.
Thank you.
Folks, I'm going to take one question from one of the people that are outside. They've been real patient. We're getting notes handed to us here, and then we'll move on to the hand. And the one question is, they wanted an update on the Sharon Stone investigation, and many of you may not even be aware of what that is, but I'll give you a quick, brief history. The Stone investigation was, she's a homeowner that lived down on 55th South. This is more of a Rainier Beach issue. Been there for years. Even when I was a police officer here, handling calls 27 years ago, she was there. And it was a problem home then. A lot has gone on over the years. It was a chronic drug dealing house, and it basically terrorized that community. When I got back here a year ago, we looked at that. It was a work in progress. We took it to the next level. It became a nuisance property. There was a drug abatement done to it. She was booted out. The house was boarded up. That had happened once before, and she was allowed to come back after about a year, and it was the same old story. Right now, the city attorney's office is going forward with actually seizing the house. She no longer owns it. It's done. A lot of work, largely due to Sergeant Martin and the members of the community police team, the narcotics detectives, and ACT team that worked on that tirelessly for over a year. Sir, in the far back with the hand up.
Yes, I've got a comment and a question.
Okay.
And the comment is, first, thank you very much for being here tonight.
It's our pleasure.
In our house several years ago, the police responded in force effectively and taken force and justice. So that was a happy experience. The question is the time frame of criminal activity, car thefts, break into houses, personal aggression, middle of the night, middle of the afternoon, is there a pattern?
It can be fairly random. Most of the time, your house is going to be
Question.
Sorry, the question. Time frame and patterns on when different crimes happen. Let's start with one everybody's concerned about, the Metro Rail robbery guys. That's basically commuter hours well into about 10, 11 at night. So starting at about 3 or 4 all the way to 10, 12 at night. Burglaries, anytime you're not home. Middle of the day, doesn't matter. When they're going door to door, it can be any of the above. Not that these crimes don't happen in non-characteristic times, they do occasionally. Car prowls are gonna be when you're sleeping or real early in the morning or at night, in most cases. They can be when you're at a Mariners game and parked down on South Stacy or something like that. I mean, so anytime there's an opportunity and there's not a lot of people around. Okay. Sir?
Has the increase in pawn shops around created a new opportunity for fencing, or where does the stuff go that gives the guys the money that they rob for?
That's an investigation that's off and running that I really can't get into a whole lot of detail about to preserve the integrity of that investigation and some of the people that are working on it. But the question was, what's the update on pawn shops? Where does this property go? Believe me when I tell you, we know where they are and we're working on it. And does the increase in pawn shops play into more stolen property going? I don't think the increase in pawn shops does. Technically, pawn shops are held to a pretty strict standard by our pawn shop detail. Not that they don't occasionally buy stolen goods, but we usually find it when they do there. There are other outlets bad guys take stolen stuff too that aren't pawn shops. Okay.
The streets.
Ma'am in the back here, been very patient.
There used to be a really robust gang prevention program in Seattle. I'm talking 15 years ago when the Crips and all those people moved up from California, and there was like a whole gang insurgency. But it seems that when they got that under control, that they stopped that program. And I see it all coming back now. So my question is, how can that program be reinstated?
Okay, good question. I'm going to repeat it, and then I'm going to hand the microphone off to Chief Diaz.
Okay.
The question...
Well done.
And I'm not a gang expert. I spent many years in other parts of the department, vice, major crimes task forces and things like that. Gangs is not one of my expertise. The question is, years ago there was a very robust gang prevention program. For a while it went away. It is being brought back. Where are we at with that, and how is that all working? Chief?
Thank you, Mike. I knew you were going to shift it to me as soon as it was that kind of a question. So let me talk a little bit about that. The whole gang issue is kind of near and dear to my heart. I was the gang commander of the captain of that unit for probably in its heyday when we had that whole influx of Crips and Bloods coming from mainly from the California area, and it became quite an issue. It was the first and only time in my life where I got to the point where I was having to hot punch the detectives because I had so many coming my way. We did get a handle on it, things started to go down, and we ended up trying an experiment, and this went back about 7-8 years ago, and it frankly failed. And the experiment was, it was in 2002, we needed to, because of budget cuts, we needed to put people back into 911 cars. The idea was, and I'll take responsibility for that idea, was that we could put a couple of those gang detective squads back into the precincts, and that they would continue to do that work as they were handling 911 calls. It sounded like a good idea, it didn't work. And for a while we got away with it because things were going relatively well. Things have started picking up again, so what we did, it was about 2 years ago now, we ended up reinstating the 2 of the gang detective squads, so we have those back in place. We also have the GREAT program, which is the gang resistance education training that we argument in schools. But I think the biggest thing that we've done that I think has been pretty helpful, and Mariko, are you here? Mariko, can you talk about the Youth Violence Initiative? Because I think that's a real important thing that we did to focus specifically on this question. And Mariko is in charge of our Youth Violence Prevention Initiative.
Thanks, and I'll be brief, but I'll be here if you have any additional questions. The City of Seattle invested and continues to invest close to $4 million a year in prevention and intervention activities for gang and youth violence. We have enrolled right now 1,100 plus youth in that initiative in 3 neighborhoods where youth violence is highest. That's Southwest, Central, and South Seattle. In this area, we have the lion's share of the young people enrolled in our initiative. We have over close to 450 young people, which is actually way over the capacity that we have. What we do is we connect them to services and programs like mentoring, jobs, recreation, and other caring adults and agencies throughout the city of Seattle to try and take them on a different path. We have seen a sharper decline in the number of referrals for youth violence in the areas that we're working than we have seen in the rest of the city. So the trends are going in the right direction. Clearly the need is great, and we continue to work with the community. Your involvement is critical because it's not a question of just connecting you to services, but really the culture of the community that we all live in and the engagement of each and every one of us to engage our young people, to be on the alert like the police officers here have said, to report crime, to report incidents, to report things that are suspicious, and to be connected. And that's what we're trying to do in that web of support for young people.
Thank you.